without further ado, let's get into our top 10, starting at number 1, where, no surprise, we all have Cale Makar. He is currently, shocker, the number 1 defenseman off the board. He has an ADP of 6.2. He is one of 2 defensemen currently being drafted in the first round in 12-team leagues. I have him at 1. Beebs has him at 1. D obviously has him at 1 as well. After missing 22 games in 2023, Makar has only missed 7 games in the last 2 seasons. It is just, he's absolutely cooked during that time. He has 14 more goals and 14 more points than the second best defenseman in each of those categories. And what makes Makar so impressive is that during that time, he's tied with William Nylander for 11th overall in the NHL in points. So I'm not going to take a deep dive here on Cale Makar. We know he's just absolutely phenomenal. There's really the only question that you have with Cale Makar is just like, when do you take him? When is too early? When is the best time to take the first defenseman off the board? He is, I think the one thing that's so interesting is, again, we talk about this a lot in all these episodes, is a lot of it is dependent on your league format. And if you're in a league that has 4 defensemen, that makes defensemen all the more valuable. So being familiar with your format, being familiar with where where he should slot in is going to make your job a lot easier on draft day. But I think the consensus among us 3 is like around 6. Number 6 overall is probably a pretty good spot. If you take a look at our consensus ADP, he ranks out, our consensus top 300, he ranks out 6th overall. I have him at 7. Beebs has him at 5. D has him at 7. Matt Larkin has him at 5. Nick has him at 10. So overall, it comes out number 6. Let's start there, because that's more of the conversation. We know how good Cale Makar is. Beebs, we'll start with you. You're a resident Avalanche fan. You have him ranked the highest. You have him ranked ahead of David Pastrnak. Is it basically the top 4, once McDavid, McKinnon, Kucherov, Draisaitl are gone, it's like, okay, the next most elite player is quite clearly Cale Makar?
You absolutely nailed it. The guy finished 8th in the league in points last season while being a defenseman. It just also, if you are at that point, I think you've kind of lost out on the prized picks. We talked about last episode just how much Pastrnak has to do to kind of put up the numbers he has last season. Makar's kind of in an offense that's going to flow here, and we've seen it before. The elite goal scoring, he's the first defenseman to score 30 plus goals since Mike Green in 2008, 2009. That was forever ago. I couldn't even read back then. So I'm 32, by the way, so I could. But yeah, no, Makar is he's just so elite in all the categories. You mentioned how much better he is across the board than everyone else. And I think at this point, it's kind of a common theme when we're talking about the superstars, but it is kind of about preference. But personally, if I'm at 5, I get Makar, I'm completely satisfied. I know last year we've talked about it on the podcast before. We had a draft for a league that was just points only. You never touched your lineup or anything. We had a friend who actually took Makar 9th and was kind of upset because he didn't know the league scoring before going in. Turns out he got value with Makar at 8th in points. So I just think, I trust the Colorado lineup a lot more than I trust I believe it was 26th or 28th best scoring team in the league, which was the Boston Bruins. So that's where Cale Makar just has that little boost. So for me, he was 5. You could easily make the case to put him, I believe, anywhere 5 through 10 there. It's just kind of where you value a defenseman in your league.
D, what do you think here? Obviously, we talked about it the last couple episodes with the wingers. There are certainly some question marks with Pastrnak and Kaprizov, right? Kaprizov a little bit banged up over the last couple of years. Then you got Pastrnak, obviously, just really lack of talent around him. So, are you confident pulling the trigger on Cale Makar that easy or that early? Or are you comfortable just to let somebody else take him and load up on some wingers?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you kind of pointed out with the consensus ranks, I think I'm just a little bit lower. I still think it's a huge advantage in pretty much all formats to get production like this out of one of your D spots, even if you've only rostering 3. I think he's just, in a tier on his own. He's far and away the best at the position. And that is certainly really valuable. I just think, the difference in what you're going to get, I just have, I think 30 is about as good as you can do from the back end, right? Yeah, as good as he is, he's got elite shot volume. He's got a career 10% shooting percentage from the back end, which is insane. That probably grades out to pretty close to the top of his goal scoring range, right? He finished with, I think it was a 12% shooting percentage last year. Really hard to get any better than that when you're shooting from, 25, 30 feet away. Although he does get a lot closer than the average blue liner. But so you kind of got to look at the difference, right? You're getting maybe an extra 5 to 10 goals out of the next best at the position. Whereas I like the upside of taking a Pasternak or a Matthews who have that 60 goal potential. And Pasternak's case, can flirt with 110 plus points. So I think I take the swing on those two guys on top of the four that you already mentioned. But otherwise, I like him more than Kaprizov. I like him more than Brady, even in banger leagues. And I'd rather take that first defenseman than reach for the first goaltender off the board in Hellebuck. So for me, it's pretty set in stone where if I'm picking seventh or later, he's there. I'm going to pull the trigger.
Yeah, obviously one of 18 defensemen ever to score 30 plus. But like if you just look at the last two seasons, Quinn Hughes 17 goals, 92 points. The one 2 years ago, Roman Josi 23 goals, 85 points. Zach Werenski last year 23 goals, 82 points. Evan Bouchard 18 goals, 82 points a couple of years ago. Like people can get close to it with a little bit later ADP, where you could pick one of those players up and maybe pair them up with a Pasternak who could just absolutely go off for 110 points and 50 goals. So yeah, very interesting. It's a position that you have to put yourself in on draft day. Like you have to be fully committed to taking Cale Makar that early if that's the route you're going to go at number 6 overall. Let's move on to number 2 for us. It's Quinn Hughes. All three of us have him ranked out as number 2. His ADP is 11.7, which makes him the number 2 defenseman off the board. So in consensus with ADP there. 2 years ago, Hughes drastically increased his shot volume. And last year we talked about it. We weren't really sure. Is that something that was going to stick? Is that going to be the anomaly? And it actually improved yet again last year. Hughes missed 14 games last year, but he was on pace for 231 shots, which would have obviously been a big increase, actually 32 shots more than he had the year before. So if he keeps up that volume, he's basically now locked himself into being a 15-plus goal scorer, and his assist volume was already basically second to none. Hughes has 26 more assists than the second best defenseman, which is Cale Makar over the last 4 seasons. So if this is a guy that's going to be flirted with one of the top, 2 or 3 defensemen in assists, and now he's suddenly added the ability to just score 15 plus goals every single season. Hughes is, to me, pretty clearly the number 2 defenseman off the board here, with Evan Bouchard coming in at number 3, kind of the one guy that is probably going to threaten him for that. But according to ADP, Hughes is quite clearly the number 2 defenseman. D, how do you feel about Hughes being quite clearly the number 2 defenseman? And would you rather just be like, I'll wait till half a round to a full round later and pick up some of these other guys?
Yeah, I don't think the difference in point production you get makes it worth getting him at the back of the first round, or I think the ADP is like 11 right now, like you said. So super steep price to pay. And I think he just deserves, or he should be a little bit more closer in line with the likes of Bouchard, or even maybe one of the other guys right after him that we'll talk about. I think he fits a little bit more closely in that tier. Don't get me wrong. He would still be my pick as the second defenseman off the board in a vacuum, but I think there should be a bigger separation between him and Makar, just because I don't think you can rely on as elite goal scoring. I don't know if it's quite as trustworthy. The shot volume, it's gotten better. Still yet to see him break 200, even though, he was on pace to do it last year, but it's just not quite on the level as a Makar or a couple of the other guys that we'll talk about, to the point where not only does it make it a little more flimsy, he's got to shoot 8% from the back end to kind of get to that 15 goal mark, which is not easy to do for a blue liner, but doesn't quite have the ceiling in putting the puck to the back of the net. But like you said, far and away the best bet if you're going to pick someone to lead the position in assists. But again, I just don't think the difference in what you'll get at the next 2 or 3 best defensemen is worth justifying that high price of pick. So I just think he should maybe be closer to the back of the second round than the back of the first round. So for me, don't really anticipate ending up with any Quinn Hughes in my leagues this year. I'm fine with that, but like I said, if we're picking in a vacuum, for sure he should be number 2 off the board. Just don't love where the ADP is at right now.
Yeah, just really quick before I get to you, Beebs. The one thing that's kind of interesting about it is it feels like a steep price tag, but then we were kind of talking about it on the last couple episodes where it's like that 11, 12th pick, that turn is a little murky. It's like, okay, yeah, we like Rannon, but do we believe 100% of that upside? We feel pretty good about William Nylander, where at least with Hughes, you're like, okay, you feel pretty comfortable with that pick. It's just it might not be the best pick, but it feels like one of the safer picks there, even though it might not end up being the best value overall. It's kind of a tricky spot to draft from. So if you leave there with Hughes and Nylander, you probably feel pretty good. It just might not end up being the best value ever. Beebs, what do you think here about Quinn Hughes?
I couldn't agree with D more. I think he nailed it. It feels like Hughes is what you settle for if you didn't get Makar in the first round. And I just don't think he holds that value compared to some of the other players around him. He's a little too close to the the third, fourth, and fifth D-man we have here, which is exactly kind of what D laid out. So I don't think Hughes is in any way not the number 2 defender, but I just think the ticket's a little too sweet. And you probably nailed it, Brock. I think a lot of people are panicking, grabbing him, knowing that they probably have a swing coming up, and that's definitely why he's going at that range. Which, if that's the case, you want to shore up your defenseman. I think it's fine. You just got to make sure you really hit on those next 2 guys, because if you don't, you might be in a little bit of a mess. And whatever you do, if you do take Hughes this early, you got to definitely lay off the D for a bit, and probably just listen to our sleepers or our value picks coming up, and grab those guys later in your draft. But yeah, Hughes, it's elite assist totals, but when it comes to defensemen, I think it really comes down to the shooting, the and the goal totals, and he just doesn't quite push the needle enough for me to justify a first round pick.
Number 3, I kind of spoiled it, but number 3 for us is Evan Bouchard. I've got him at 3. Beebs has him at 4. D also has him at 3, so he comes out consensus number 3 for us. He's also ADP 19.5, which is the third defenseman off the board. For 2 seasons, we hoped for Bouchard to be the power play 1 quarterback and play big minutes in Edmonton, and that's what we've got finally over the last 2 years. The results have been elite. We talked about this podcast kind of 3 or 4 years ago, like, hey, like, let's just get this going. Let's give him the full run. It's finally happened. He's been unbelievable. During that time, he is tied for 6th among defensemen in goals, but he's 3rd in assists, 3rd in points, 3rd in power play points, 3rd in shots on goals. So it seems pretty evident that he's the number 3 defenseman off the board here. He's missed just 1 game in the last 4 years. And to me, again, it all depends on your appetite for taking defensemen early, but like, he feels like a pretty safe pick, right? Like, you look at among these guys that are kind of going around him. The guy right behind him is Zach Werenski, a guy with a lot of injury history in his past, and then guys going right before him, Jack Hughes, having really hard time staying healthy over the last couple of years. Jack Eichel, same thing. Mitch Marner, new team. So there's some question marks around him where Bouchard feels it's like, okay, he's quite clearly going to be on a top 5 power play in the league. He's going to score double-digit goals. He's going to absolutely light it up here for the Oilers. So it feels like a pretty safe pick if you're comfortable taking a defenseman that early. But ADP 19.5. Beebs, what are your thoughts here on Evan Bouchard?
I'm certainly more comfortable if I end up with Bouchard than if I were to have Quinn Hughes. But with that said, I had Bouchard at 4 instead of Zach Werenski. I guess I'll kind of blow that secret as well. For me, it's more about what Werenski offers. There's a lot of W's going down there, but what Werenski offers compared to Bouchard, I think we're basically choosing between, 2 fantastic choices here. As you mentioned, I believe Bouchard is like 19.5 ADP, where Werenski is 20.2. So they're getting thrown in the same jar together. For me, it's if Werenski can stay healthy for 82 again, which Bouchard has proven he can, I just think he brings more value. But if you're not as much of a gambler and you want the safe pick, Brock mentioned it, Bouchard's the guy. You're going to get 15 to 20 goals per season, close to 200 plus shots, and he's going to be on that elite top power play. Where Werenski, for me, just kind of has a little bit more room to grow even after last year's 300 shot season, is the lineup around him is kind of expanding. I think we're all pretty excited for what Columbus has to offer this season, as a lot of their young talent takes a step forward. And Werenski managed to do a lot of his damage last year with limited power play success. He only had 5 power play goals, 25 power play points. For Bouchard, who's someone who just eats on the power play, I don't think that there's much more room to grow there, where I see a little bit for Werenski. But I think these guys are both fantastic choices. I'm definitely a lot happier with them, as I mentioned, instead of Quinn Hughes. And I think, if you mentioned you're on one of those corner swings, and if you are in a 10-team draft, even a 12-team draft, and you end up with Bouchard or Werenski, or even the person we have after at your second swing, I think you're going to be very, very happy, because you'll also have 2 more likely superstars there. So for me, these 2 choices come down to, are you willing to risk it for someone who could give you a bit more, or do you want the safer choice in Evan Bouchard? Both fantastic. D, you got him higher than me, and you're with Brock on that one. So what's the reasoning there for, or not reasoning, I guess, just why are we so big on or high on Evan Bouchard?
Yeah, I think you're totally, justifiable if you want to bet on the shot volume with Werenski and making that pick. To me, it's, like a little bit with the injury concern. A lot of it just comes down to the supporting cast. Like, Bouchard's got the best in the league in that regard. I don't think it's particularly close having McDavid and Draisaitl on the power play with you. And just knowing he's going to get that full run, the shot volume is still, it's going to be top 5 easily at the position come year end. He's got an absolute bomb. So I think goal scoring wise, like we haven't seen the best of what he can offer. I wouldn't be surprised if he tops 20 goals for the first time this year. The assist totals are really safe because of that power play usage, and just been really, really durable, right? Like we're kind of, for me, like I said, I like to use it as a tiebreaker in terms of potential injury risk or injury record, I guess. He's missed just 2 games in the last 4 seasons, so certainly notable. I think the ice time has room to grow, right? Like his defensive play is probably what's hampered that in years past, and maybe that doesn't change, but there's no theoretical room for a Werenski or a Hughes to, tack on a couple extra minutes when they're already at 26 minutes a night. Bouchard at 23 and a half last year. It's gone up each of the last 2 seasons. So I do think, they could just commit to all in on the offense even further. I think it just makes more sense with their build on their roster right now anyway. So still room for that to grow. The shot volume could climb as well, and just the raw production across the board. So that's why I like Bouchard just a little bit more. I think if I am going to go defenseman early in those first 2 to 3 rounds, he's the guy I'm going for. And if not, I'm happy to just kind of target some more a few rounds later and maybe pick up on a sleeper or 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 4, obviously, Zach Werenski. I got him at 4. He's got him at 4. As mentioned, Beebs got him a little higher at 3. He's going like less than a full pick later than Evan Bouchard, so people obviously split on them, much like we are. ADP's 20.3, number 4 defenseman off the board. Werenski was one of my favorite value picks last year. I wrote about him constantly throughout the preseason. He made me look very, very smart, and I appreciate him very much for that. But Werenski put it all together last year, scoring 23 goals with 59 assists for 82 points in 81 games. But durability, as Dee mentioned, remains a bit of a concern, but his unbelievable usage and the shot volume that Beebs mentioned is just unreal, and it's worth taking a risk on the upside. But I still feel like he remains a somewhat risky late second round pick. Like last year, he was going to pick like 118 or something like that. Like that was no brainer. Take him a couple rounds ahead of ADP, and if he's healthy, he's unbelievable. But the health has been a major, major, major issue over many, many years. So to me, as much as I've liked Zach Werenski over the years, pull the trigger on him in the late second round, it scares me a little bit where, he could undoubtedly pay off that draft spot. Like that's not a question. I know he can, but so can Evan Bouchard, and the Bouchard pick just feels so much safer to me. So, obviously we're both kind of on the Bouchard side of things. I guess just shed some light on to why Zach Werenski would be, a good consolation prize if you miss out on Bouchard.
I mean, he took a step forward across the board last year, right? Like he was one of the best defensemen across the entire league, both ends of the ice, full stop, right? And he got rewarded with the extra ice time. The assist total skyrocketed up. And like Beef said, that's a young core that's only getting better. So maybe there is more of a floor than you might expect with a guy who jumped assist totals year over year of 13. Tends to fluctuate a little bit more than the goal scoring, but I think you can kind of convince yourself to feel better about it. And yes, the shot volume, man, 298 shots, and really just didn't show any signs of slowing down across the entire season. And I don't expect to see any reason why he wouldn't continue to fire the biscuit at that rate this year. So yeah, I mean, when you're shooting almost 300 times, you only got to shoot 5-6% to break that 20 goal mark, which makes an elite goal scorer at the position, right? So I think it's justifiable. Like I said, if you want to bet on the shot volume and bet on the goal scoring upside. For me though, like you said, I think assist totals, I think they'll be dead in line, and there's just more risk with Werenski. Whereas it really worth the extra 5 to 8 goals that you're probably going to get over the course of a full season. You're not really going to notice that in weekly leagues too much on a week-to-week basis. So that's why I just like taking the safer pick in Bouchard and betting on that surrounding cast around him.
We always say, like, you can't really, you can, but you can't really win your league in the first couple rounds, but you can certainly lose it. And if you take Werenski over Bouchard and Werenski gets hurt, Bouchard plays 81 games, it's like that could be a season-defining draft pick. And I just think the risk maybe outweighs the upside a little bit there between the two. Beebs, any final thoughts on kind of the Bouchard or Werenski debate here?
I think I just trust our sleepers a little too much, because you know what? If Werenski goes down, I'm just going to go off and snag one. No, you guys make a great point. Like I mentioned, it's risk versus reward. I'm just willing to go in there and shake it up a little more. But that's completely fine. I have to admit, going into a draft, if I do get to this point, I'm going to need to see who my first guy is. If it's someone like you mentioned, how there was a couple names up front who were a little questionable about, even like a Rantanen, then I'm probably going the Bouchard route, just to keep things safe, make sure the season doesn't blow up on me. But, I'm hopeful Werenski can give us another 82-game season. And because that was just beautiful what we got last year. It's just elite totals. But either way, I like them both. And I actually really like our next name, who's I think we could call friend of the show at this point.
I think so just to make things clear here, so these are the four that are going to the first two rounds of the draft. These are the four that you're going to have to reach on. Makar, Hughes, Bouchard, and Werenski. And before we move on to our number 5, I guess I kind of want to know your guys' thoughts on the strategy here, because to me, the drop off from those guys to our number 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 defensemen who are going 40, 50 picks later in some cases, it's not that big. And I honestly just don't think that I'll end up with a lot of Bouchard or Werenski. Makar that'll be kind of a game time decision, but Hughes, Bouchard, Werenski, that's steep prices to pay when I don't think the difference between some of the guys going 40 picks later is that drastic. So I personally, outside of Makar, probably don't think I'm going to end up with many of Hughes, Bouchard, or Werenski. D, what are your thoughts there? Is that ADP a little too rich for you as well?
Yeah, it is. Defenseman's kind of one of those positions where the ADP can swing a lot in league to league, just depending on not only the format, but if one of these guys goes, if a Hughes kind of just really falls to where Hughes goes, right? Because if Hughes falls back a little bit, then maybe these next couple of guys do as well. It just comes down to the names that I like around there. And I do think as much as we talk, I like our chances of finding value later in the draft. It is obviously a thinner position, right? There's only so many power play spots to go around. Really hard to maintain fantasy relevance if you're not getting that power play production. So it thins out quick. So if you're not going to invest early, then you probably need to hit a couple of them in those middle rounds, right? Whereas I still like a lot of the wingers that are going around there. So yeah, it just kind of comes down to it, man. The nice thing about this is that where these guys are going, you're normally closer to the swing of the draft. You can kind of really forecast your next pick to where, hey, if I do invest early, the Eichels, the Mariners, I don't love a lot of those picks anyway. So I'm okay with kind of, going with the really safe picks. So I think we're kind of projecting them more based on their floor, which makes sense. It's kind of what you have to do. But I do think all of these guys do kind of have league winning upside if they hit, like Werenski did last season, not just on where Werenski went last year, right? If Werenski goes out and gets 23 goals, 59 assists again, he's going to be a smash even at this ADP. So I do think these guys, they're here because they have upside that most of the other guys that are going in the middle rounds don't. So it just kind of comes down to really trying to forecast your next few picks. It's not my favorite strategy. I do like investing at this position early more than goaltenders, though. I will say that much.
I completely agree with Dee on this one. This almost feels like a tight end in football. You have your top few who can put up those elite numbers, but after that, it's not maybe someone comes out of the woodwork, one guy a year that could get themselves up there. Last year it was Werenski, but other than that, we kind of know what's in front of us, and it's just all based on usage, teams of guy or where guys are placed, yada yada. But what I think really bodes well for taking any one of these first 6 guys that we talk about here. Is that there are 6 of them. You're going to be in a league that's 10 to 12 teams. That means that half the league's gonna start making these decisions early on. So you can kind of see the trends coming. Like Dee said, if you see guys start to go off the board, maybe reach a little earlier or wait and like we mentioned, go for a guy we mentioned from 7 to 10. Or if they fall to you, which is kind of how I feel here. If someone were to fall to me that I felt it was a good spot, then I'm fine with it. I don't think I'm ever reaching for a defenseman, but I'm willing to take one kind of if it falls to me, if that makes any sense. So like we mentioned, I think Quinn Hughes is way too sweet for the elite forward talent you can get around that area. But other than that, it's kind of, if they fall to you, you can make a case for it. I think you're fine if you take one of the first 6. It could definitely be a useful strategy.
Our number 5 defenseman is Rasmus Dahlin. Current ADP is 28.7, which also makes him the number 5 defenseman off the board. So far we are in absolute lockstep with the ADP, but it starts to get dicey after here. So I've got him at 5. Beeb's got him at 5. D's got him at 5 because this is number 5. Dahlin is kind of like the Brady Tkachuk of defensemen in a way, right? Like he has just tremendous offensive upside, but also just bangs the ball as well. He's a banger league dream. Over the last 4 seasons, he's averaged 17 goals, 66 points, 213 shots, and 137 hits per 82 games. During that time, only 6 defensemen have 250 plus points, and only 38 defensemen have 500 plus hits. Dahlin is the only defenseman in both categories. So he is a banger league dream, but in standard leagues, like he doesn't really fall off the map like Brady Tkachuk does, right? Like the offensive upside is better than what Brady offers on the wing, and the hit volume is obviously less than what Brady offers on the wing. So it's maybe not the perfect comparison, but it's somewhat similar where, you know, Dahlin probably jumps up the board quite a bit in banger leagues, might fall down a bit in the board in just standard formats, but regardless of format, he's a great pick. I mean, 17 goals, 66 points per 82 games. Obviously, you know, the Sabres may not be the most talented team ever, but he's done all of this while playing on a Sabres team that's not been all that talented. So if things improve in any regard for the Sabres this year, Dahlin should be even better, theoretically. So, yeah, I just think that Dahlin's been pretty consistent. He offers really, really nice category coverage. He basically has no threat to his power play one usage, right? Like, Owen Power has not shown to be that guy. Bowen Byram has never, developed into that guy yet. It just has not happened. And Dahlin's been the constant, and he's got a 20-goal season under his belt. He's got 250 assist seasons in the last 3 years. So the production can be really, really impressive. I think he's a fine pick. ADP 28.7. A decent fallback option if you miss out on the first 4. What are your thoughts here on Dahlin, Beebs?
Last 3 seasons for Dahlin: 2nd in goals with 52 among D-man, 6th in points with 200, and 4th in shot on goals with 639. That just shows, as Brock mentioned, just how much he covers every category across the board. And we didn't even mention the hits. So if you do have a banger league, he kind of spikes up here. I love the value in Dahlin here. As you mentioned as well, Buffalo really hasn't had much success in the last couple of years. If that power play can kind of click a little bit, we're set. The other thing is, I don't know if the Powers and the guys behind Dahlin, I don't know if Buffalo even wants them to surpass him on the top power play. They know Dahlin drives the bus there, and if you can get behind it, it's definitely someone who has a lot more to give us than what we've seen in the last couple of years, which is pretty crazy considering those averages. So I really like the chance on him, and it's kind of interesting that maybe there's a higher ceiling here, considering we've seen the 20 goals and the plus 200 shots multiple times. So, or the 200 shots multiple times, goals once, but still, it's there. D, how do you feel about Dahlin on your favorite team, the Buffalo Sabres?
Yeah, I think when you get to this point in the rankings, like the reason I have him as high as I do, it's not just the category coverage. I mean, block shots too, right? Like he's going to rack up a ton of block shots playing for this Buffalo team because they don't have the puck a lot. So I agree. Like the more extended your format gets, I think the more valuable Dahlin gets. But to me, he's the most reliable goal scorer at the position after those top 4. And as we get deeper into it, like that's going to really be the main separator. A lot of these guys can finish between 45 and, upwards of 60 assists, but it's really like who can really push that 20 goal mark that's going to make the difference when kind of boiling down these rankings. And he offers that. Probably the biggest, maybe the biggest scare with Dahlin isn't even his own health. Like he had some injury trouble first couple of seasons, been really reliable over the last handful, but kind of comes down to Tage, right? Like Tage has missed some time the last few years. And then even when he hasn't, he's played through some injuries that have kind of affected his raw production. But when Tage is going, like, we saw what happened with Dahlin's assist totals a couple years ago when he finished with 58 and career high 73 points, right? So that's kind of the bigger question mark is there's almost like he almost has twice the injury risk of the average player because the surrounding cast is so weak. And unlike a Werenski, maybe just doesn't, or I guess unlike Werenski did last year, maybe just doesn't drive the production all on his own, especially on the power play as Werenski can. So that's, to me, why he falls in just below those guys. But I think he's clear-cut the best blue liner to target after those top 4. ADP isn't quite where I'd want it to be to kind of reflect those differences where, he's only going about half a round after Werenski. But still, I think a guy that's as good as bet as anybody to kind of threaten for that number 2 overall spot, because I'm not going to sit here and say I'd expect him to push Makar off the podium. But yeah, I think it's production wise feels really good, feels really safe, the category coverage, and like I said, the further you get, the more extended your format is, the better he gets.
Number 6 for us is Roman Josi. This is where things start to get very interesting in our rankings. I've got him at 6. Beebs also has him at 6. D's got him super low at 7. His ADP is 56.8, which makes him the number 11 defenseman off the board. So we are 5 spots ahead of consensus ADP here. We've got a little bit more on Roman Josi later in the show. Won't spoil which part of the show, but I think it's pretty evident based on our rankings where he's going to end up. So we'll talk about Josi a little bit more in the second half of the show. Let's move on now to number 7, where we've got Adam Fox. ADP is 49.3, which makes him the number 9 defenseman off the board. So we have 2 spots ahead of ADP. I've got him at 7. D's got him the highest at 6, and Beebs has him at 8. Fox really is in an interesting spot here. He seems to be getting drastically overlooked, and not just this year. It feels like this has been kind of the case over the last few years. He's scored double-digit goals in 4 straight seasons while averaging 60 assists per 82 games during that time. He's 3rd among defensemen in points during that stretch. He's tied for 9th in goals. I mean, I feel absolutely fine. And this is one of the names I was talking about earlier, where if I don't get Bouchard, or I don't feel like reaching for Bouchard or one of those Werenski in the second round, late 4th, early 5th, and you land Adam Fox as my number 1 defenseman. I mean, that is, to me, feels like tremendous value. And I think it's not outlandish at all to suggest that Adam Fox can finish as the number 3, top 3 defenseman in fantasy this year. And last year, the Rangers' power play was just awful. Bottom 5 in the league. He had just 18 power play points. And that comes on the heels of him ranking 3rd among defensemen in power play points with 95, averaging 33 power play points per season over the 3 previous seasons. So this is a guy that's had a lot of power play production and still had a really good year last year, despite the power play being basically anemic all season. So, it seems to be like he's kind of being drafted almost, I was going to say at his floor. It might be below his floor, to be honest with you. So Adam Fox at ADP 49, just outside the 4th round, feels like outrageous value right now. D, you have the highest here. What are your thoughts on Adam Fox?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, I feel like in years past, we were always low on Fox, right? Like he was usually going closer in that round 2 to 3 range and falling back all the way towards the back around 4, start around 5. Makes a big difference in terms of the potential value and, the names that you're passing up in round 2 as opposed to round 4 at the other positions. I think it makes a lot of sense. Doesn't shoot the puck as much as we'd like, which is why he doesn't quite crack the top 5. But I just think the assist production is so reliable. It's going to be elite. I expect that power play to be better this year. They still have a lot of top end pieces to get the job done. And even with the low shot volume, like he is consistently shot above 7% in each of the last 4 seasons. So I still think he's a really good bet to get to double-digit goals and threaten with 60 assists. So I agree. I think he's just a really safe pick. Why I like him just a little bit more than Josi with the surrounding cast. And Fox isn't going to be a total detriment to your plus-minus in leagues that account for that, whereas I think Josi will. And then he's got the injury question marks as well. So I still love the upside with the Josi. But to me at this point, it's probably going to be my first defenseman off the board. So I'm going to play it a little safe and go with the really steady production in Adam Fox.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning last year we had him ranked at number 7 as well. His ADP last year was 36.5. So going nearly 10 picks, almost a full round, 12 picks later than he was a season ago. So yeah, the value seems to be very obvious. Beeps, thoughts on Adam Fox here?
The reason I had him at 8, it's just the ceiling. You mentioned it. The floor is sensational, but I think the floor and the ceiling are very close to each other on this one. We saw what it takes to get him to mid 70 points the last 3 years before last year, and that was 30 plus points on the power play. Last year, 61 points and only 18 on the power play, as you mentioned. So add in 13 more power play points, and he is back to that ceiling that we've seen of mid 70 points. I think some of the names ahead of him that I have ranked just have that potential to reach 20 goals, have that potential to reach 200 shots. I love Fox, what Fox can give you. And if he falls to you, I'm not going to be sad. I don't think if he's my first D-man off the board, totally cool with it. But with that said, if I'm willing to take a chance on someone who just rips the puck a little bit more, that's probably the direction I'm going to go with a couple of these names that I have personally ahead of him. But he's safe. New York's going to have a much, much better team in general this year. I think things are definitely going to flow. They really can't get much worse. So I think Fox is a great pick at this choice. It kind of blew my mind how far, even though I have him ranked at 8, I do think he is kind of being disrespected here for what he's done. But until he can show that he can get 20 goals and maybe 180 shots on goal, I'm really going to struggle to push him ahead of guys who have the potential to do that for me and kind of have floors that are relatively similar.
Yeah, I mean, I think the value is tremendous, and where he's getting drafted to, like who he's getting drafted around, I should say, is makes it maybe even a little bit easier. I think is some guys that are a little bit more questionable. Like I think Martin Netchas is a guy that I think we all feel pretty good about, but like Nick Suzuki, Alexander Barkov, Adrian Kempe, Connor Bedard, Cole Caulfield, like all the guys going right after him. Like if I don't have a defenseman there, I think I'm pretty easily just going to pull the trigger on Adam Fox and feel pretty good about it. I think there's obviously some really good upside with some of those players. Don't get me wrong. I just think that
yeah, you're not going to hate yourself for that pick.
no, I think you feel pretty good about that pick regardless. But obviously we have Roman Josi ranked ahead of him. He's going later too, so it'll always be a bit of a decision there on which one you like more. Let's get to our number 8 defenseman. Now we have Victor Hedman of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He is going ADP 34.3, so he is the number 6 defenseman off the board. So we're 2 spots below ADP here. I have him at 8 Beebs. You have him at the highest at 7D. You have him at 10. He enters his age 35 season, but he remains what appears to be an extremely strong option. The Lightning will continue to be among the best offenses in the league. Clearly one of the best power plays as well. We've talked about this power play a ton over the last few episodes. Started with Braden Point, then Jake Gensel, Nikita Kucherov. Like very, very talented. He's averaged 12 goals and 51 assists over the last 3 seasons. Those are the seasons that came after his just massive 85-point season in 2022. But a couple things, I guess, that like I'm hoping that one of you can at least maybe make me feel more confident about Victor Hedman. Like I don't know why I feel this way. I just feel like maybe it's because he's 35. We saw Darren Radish be PP1 at times last year, sometimes together, sometimes not. I don't know if I'm overreacting to that feeling or if that's something that's going to continue and we're going to see that power play 1 usage decrease over time as he gets older. Like there's something about Victor Hedman that makes me a little nervous. And I think more than anything, it's the ADP, right? 34.3. We have them both, quite clearly behind Josi and Fox, who are going several rounds later. I think that's probably the part that's leaving the most sour taste in my mouth. But Beebs, you've got him ranked the highest. I guess make a case for why Victor Hedman is better than Adam Fox.
I definitely can't make a case as to why that ADP is justifiable, but I can make one on why I have him ahead of Fox. And let's just look back the last 4 seasons. We've seen Hedman outscore him in both goals and points and shots on goal in those 3 of 4 years. The one year that he didn't was his down year in 2022-23, and that really wasn't a year anyone wants to remember. But for Hedman, we saw him have a down year last year, as you mentioned, kind of off the power play, and he still had 15 goals and 66 points in 79 games. So for him, it's just that ability to get a little bit more shots. He's exactly what I was kind of asking Adam Fox to be in the last segment there. When I said, get me those 180 shots, get me those 20 goals. That's just kind of where I push Hedman a little bit more above him. They are very, very similar players. And that's why I'd be content with getting Adam Fox later at his choice or at his point. But when we are doing our top 10 here, it's just, who do you think's the top 10? And I do think Hedman's a better player. Better fantasy option, but I don't believe that he's worth it at that sweet of an ADP. I think you're going to definitely be handcuffed later in the draft if you take that reach. I'd rather do it on someone who has a bit more of a ceiling, as crazy as that is to say. But at 35 years old, we know what the best of Hedman is, and I'm fine with that. And I think that's worth being the 7th defenseman off the board, in my opinion. But that is a aggressively sweet ADP.
You are the lowest on him, almost outside of your top 10. What's got you so low on it? Maybe you can unearth some of the feelings I have within me that are questioning Victor Hedman.
Yeah, I think you highlighted the concerns, right? I just think it's a little bit riskier than some of the other picks going around him. I mean, I for sure certainly won't be in on him around his ADP. He'd have to fall a round or two. But I feel like the other guys that I have ranked above him are just safer bets and, maybe don't offer quite as much upside that he flashed, 3 or 4 years ago, whenever it was when he finished with 85 points. But I think it's the age 35 season. Like, yeah, from a production profile alone, that kind of scares you. Is kind of like, when's the hammer going to drop here? But like you said last season, we just saw them be, excuse me, really careful with his minutes. And they rely on him so much from a defensive standpoint and on the penalty kill that the easiest way to do that, with how good the power play pieces are already and the fact that it's all going to run through Kucherov anyway, is to kind of take a step back from that power play usage, right? So that kind of scares me a little bit. And like you said, like, there were times last season where they just straight up opted for Radish ahead of him, and I think it was mostly based on that. So I don't think that's going away this year. And yeah, I don't think like the extra goal scoring he gives with, a guy like Adam Fox, maybe you can rely on Hedman for 4 or 5 more goals. To me, that's not really worth the risk when I feel better about the assist production I'm going to get at Fox and don't have some of these other concerns based around the age and the utilization.
Yeah, I think the other thing too that like we don't talk about basically ever is the Lightning. I think I can't guarantee this, but I feel pretty strongly in the fact that I think the Lightning ice 7 defensemen and 11 forwards more than any team in the NHL. So just naturally, by even if a guy's out there getting 8, 9, 11 minutes a night, it's going to eat into Hedman's usage. And I think that they feel pretty comfortable with the 7 that they've got. They're going to probably continue to roll that out with frequency this year, and that's just going to limit Hedman a little bit. But yeah, like, I think, again, if Hedman was dropping to like Adam Fox's ADP at around 50, it's like, okay, fine, yeah, sign me up. But at 34, inside the top 3 rounds, I just don't know if I'm going to get there at all. Let's move on to our number 9 defenseman here. We've got Josh Morrissey. All 3 of us have him ranked at number 9. His current ADP is 38.2, which makes him the number 7 defenseman off the board. So we're 2 spots below ADP on Josh Morrissey. Really, really good season last year, right? 14 goals, 48 assists, 62 points. Surprisingly, that's the worst season he's had in the last 3. But he's been dynamite. Really, really, really good over the last 3 seasons. During that time, he's 8th among defensemen in goals. He's 4th among defensemen in points. He is 9th among defensemen in power play points, and he is, where did it go? 14th among defensemen in shots on goal. So across the board, basically a number 1 defenseman in all categories in standard formats. A guy that is on an offense where not much changed this offseason, right? This is a team that is basically running it back from last year. They were one of the best power plays in the league. He excelled in that regard, and a guy that's going to just definitely score double-digit goals, probably flirt with 50 assists, maybe push 60. He also bangs a little bit, close to a hit per game. So an interesting player for sure, but at ADP 38.2, I don't know if I necessarily feel like he's going to be on any of my teams at that ADP either. D, thoughts on Josh Morrissey?
Yeah, don't love the ADP. I would still take him before Hedman. I think they offer really similar production profiles without any of the concerns that Hedman offers. Love the surrounding cast on the power play. Obviously, that was the real difference maker, right? For years, we saw him be a really effective player at 5v5 and one of the better 2-way defensemen in the leagues. And then when he finally overtook Keonk for that top power play spot, production's just taken off the last few seasons. So I think the floor is really, really steady. He's shown to have 75-point upside when that team runs hot. So yeah, I like taking him above Hedman. Again, I'm with you, though. I don't love the ADP with where he's going. I think it's, to me, we're kind of splitting hairs, and it doesn't justify taking him, 2.5 rounds ahead of guys like Fox and some of the other names that are falling around there.
Beebs, any final thoughts on Morrissey?
I just need to see him get to that 200 shot mark. I'm going to keep setting that plateau for players, but fantastic production last couple of seasons. Again, though, ADP, little too sweet here, but like you mentioned earlier in the show, there are some guys who can fill some categories here, and we got guys who have averaged double-digit goals. We haven't looked at one yet who hasn't, so you're at least going to get that production from all of these names. So
that's the one thing you kind of brought up earlier in the show is like the D feels a lot better than it used to. And it used to be like double-digit goals was kind of like a threshold that like you were like, oh, I just really wish I could get double-digit goals out of a defenseman. And then now it's like, yeah, like pretty much everybody in the top 50 does that now. Okay, number 10 is Shea Theodore. I've got him at 10. Beebs has got him at 11. D's got him at 8. He has got an ADP of 63.8. So another defenseman that you could just wait on that is got clear number one defenseman upside here. His ADP is the 14th defenseman off the board, so we're 4 spots ahead of ADP there. Once again, we're going to talk about him a little bit more in the second half of the show. I think it's, again, pretty obvious where he's going to fall into, which bucket he's going to fall into. Let's just really quickly recap our top 10. Then we're going to roll through our 11 through 50 quickly as well. Number 1, Cale Makar. Number 2, Quinn Hughes of the Vancouver Canucks. Number 3, Evan Bouchard of the Oilers. Number 4, Columbus Blue Jackets defenseman Zach Werenski. Number 5, Rasmus Dahlin. Number 6, Roman Josi. Number 7, Adam Fox. Number 8, Victor Hedman. Number 9, Josh Morrissey. And number 10, Shea Theodore. Number 11 is Lane Hutson. We're going to have a little bit more about him in the second half of the show as well. But I have got him at 11. So does D. Beebs was the highest on him at 10. His current ADP is 49, which is the 8th defenseman off the board. So we're 3 spots below ADP on Lane Hutson. Jake Sanderson comes in number 12. I've got him at 13. Both Beebs and Dylan have him at 12. His current ADP is 63.5, which is the 13th defenseman off the board, so 1 spot ahead of ADP there. Number 13 is Dougie Hamilton of the New Jersey Devils. Current ADP is 68.2. I've got him the lowest at 15. Both Beebs and Dylan have it 13. He's currently the 15th defenseman off the board, so we're 2 spots ahead of ADP there. Number 14 is Mackenzie Weegar. I just want to talk about Mackenzie Weegar for like 1 minute because we all have him at 14. He's currently been drafted as a top 10 defenseman, but he is very, he's probably closer to the Brady Tkachuk of defensemen than anything. Just maybe he doesn't have the exact same offensive upside, but like he is an absolute unicorn, like in fantasy hockey. Like if you're in leagues that count peripherals, like he could be a second round pick, honest to God. Like he is an absolute category stuffer. It does not matter the format. He scores goals. Maybe not always double-digit goals, but he had a 20-goal season, so he can score. He's got a 50-point season. He has over 200 shots on average, basically. He has basically on average 200 hits, 200 block shots. Like he does literally everything. So he's a guy where if you use the DFO draft kit, you use the free customizable rankings tool, like if you've got blocks or hits, like he is going to skyrocket ahead of ADP, and you should take him there because he is just that valuable. Very, very interesting player from the fantasy circles, depending on your league format. And then number 15 for us is Miro Heiskanen. I've got him at 19. So does Beebs. D's got him at 16. Comes in ADP 85.8, which is the 20th defenseman off the board. So we're still, even though we're low on him, he's still 5 spots ahead of ADP. So Heiskanen looking like a value this year as well. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to give you our top 3 value ADPs to avoid and breakout defensemen for the 2025-26 fantasy hockey season. See you back in a few minutes. Thanks for watching this video. If you want more great fantasy hockey and betting content from myself, Carter Hutton, Matthew Barnaby, and the rest of the DFO analysts, make sure you subscribe to the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel today and never miss a minute.